this is Laura. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Secret Book of John. I made a video the other day on the subject, and kind of made some mistakes in that video, so I'm redoing this. I talk a lot about gnosis in the videos that I've made, and the Secret Book of John is probably my favorite text out of the entire Nag Hammadi library. It's about the demiurge. So I'm going to talk a little bit about differences between the Secret Book of John and the creation story in the Bible. It is a very controversial text because it's about the demiurge. And if you don't know what a demiurge is, it's basically a lesser god, which is what the word demiurge means. It means demigod. It's Greek for demigod. So basically a little god. And a lot of Gnostics and some scholars even, or maybe even some bishops. I don't know if you're familiar with Marcion. Well, his time was before the Council of Nicaea, if I'm not mistaken. And he was kicked out of the church, of course. My arm hurts. This is hard doing this from an iPhone. Because, as far as he was concerned, the Old Testament God and the New Testament God are not the same. As far as he was concerned, there's no way that those two could be the same. Getting the shadow back there. Which is not hard to believe, because really, if you think about it, the way Jesus describes the Father, and I have to lay down, this is so hard. The way Jesus describes the Father and what we see in the Old Testament it's like night and day. And the differences between the two personalities. So this is very common in the Gnostic world. This idea that Yahweh, or the Old Testament God, is actually a demiurge. And in the Secret Book of John, there's this big elaboration over all the series of events that have taken place that have eventually brought us to where we are now at this level of reality in this physical world. And basically it's dialogue between Jesus and John. And Jesus is very lovingly and very patiently, over and over again, giving John different scenarios, or he's giving him different explanations of how everything came to be, because John has chicken egg questions. He wants to know everything. He wants to understand every aspect of his reality and how all this came into being. And he's relentlessly probing him for answers. And Jesus is obliging him. So basically, this is his explanation to John. And he goes into depth about the complexity of our divine origins. And it's absolutely beautiful. You're not going to see anything like that in the Bible, in the Old Testament or the New Testament. It's a different style of writing, and it's just different. The whole thing is just different. So, there's a few things to note about the contrast between the two stories and why the Secret Book of John is so controversial. And one of the reasons is because there's a middleman, the demiurge, and And it also gives a more detailed story about how man and woman have come into being or been manifested into physical form. And this is a big deal because the difference between the two has the ability to change a human being's idea about, well, definitely women. I mean, all the way, the whole 360 degrees. Because in the Secret Book of John, this demiurge has decided to manifest man, which already exists, but what he's doing is he's trapping him into physical form. And his mother, who's Sophia, and Sophia, by the way, literally means wisdom. I'll get into the whole story later into another video. I'm just trying to point out the differences and why there's controversy over this text. But he basically makes a man, traps man, and but because he's incomplete, because of the way that he was created, he's not this is a flawed creature because of the way Sophia went about creating him. She didn't consort her male counterpart, and because of that, he didn't quite come out right. And so everything that he does is doesn't exactly have divine results. And one of them is manifesting man into this world. So he is not working with a full deck, and Sophia sees this, and so she sends luminous Epinoa, if I'm even pronouncing that right. And basically, this is Eve. This is this beautiful, feminine, lovely, wonderful thing. And she instills it inside of him, basically to protect her from him, from the demiurge and all of his little creatures that he's created, demons. And because he knows that, or she knows that they'll just rip him apart. And so, but he catches on to it because, well, he starts to see that that Adam is so much more glorious than he is. And so he puts him to sleep, and he extracts Epinoa out of him and creates a flesh body for her, making her exposed to the world. And of course, when they wake up, they're in ignorance again, and they cling to each other naturally because they need each other. They're not supposed to be separated in the first place. This story is kind of suggesting that man and woman shouldn't have ever even been man and woman. That part of our consistent lonely state and, you know, the reason why we always feel so alone and why we need to be married, or a lot of us need to be married, why we crave sexual intimacy and closeness, period, is because of what happened according to this story. We have a different story in the Bible, and it's not so much that it's different, it's just it's such an ambiguous book and there's so much left out. So my theory is that they don't necessarily contradict one another, but that the Bible is just simply not elaborating on certain ideas. And so it almost makes it sound like Eve was just created out of thin air, and she was only made because Adam was lonely. So she's like the second-hand idea that just came out of a whim. And if she hadn't been created, then there would just be no Eve. And then, of course, there's no mentioning of all of these wonderful characteristics that she stems from. But in the Secret Book of John, there is. So, I think if you consider the Secret Book of John, put it up against Genesis, and read them both, you would have so much more respect for women and anything that resembles femininity, for that matter. And without it, you're just going to look at her like she's, the little troublemaker that's never kept in line, that came second and caused nothing but problems when she was created. And, you can do a lot of damage with that idea. And the powers that be have used it to their advantage, definitely. So it's kind of for the evil in the world, to its advantage, that the Bible does come across very ambiguously. If you take into consideration other texts, and then you turn around and read the Bible again, still embracing the words in there, but you just allow yourself to look at it from a different angle, I think you would probably have a more peaceful message and a more fulfilling idea about men and women and all of the essential elements that comprise the world. And I'm probably out of time, so I'll pick up a little bit more in another video. And I want to wish everybody peace and blessings, and have a good evening. Thank you.